Recognizing boundaries and understanding them is a critical component to any successful relationship, whether we're talking personal or professional. And so on the subject of boundaries, we're going to break it up into two-part video series. So the first one, which is for today, we're going to cover what are boundaries, recognizing the signs as to when boundaries are crossed, truly digging into understanding the challenges as to why people have trouble setting boundaries, and why boundaries might actually be a good thing. And then in part 2, we're going to address how to effectively set boundaries and some strategies around that. Hi, I'm Jilda with the Nonprofit Path. It's a personal development coaching practice designed to help you have less overwhelm and more balance. And I'm here to help support you on issues like these. For some additional resources, please check out the link below. I do have a free guide on how to focus on your priorities. Appreciate you watching, and we'll start off by sharing what boundaries actually look like with an example. So you're at work, and your boss keeps piling on more and more and more on your plate. And about 2 weeks ago, you already said yes to helping pick up the slack with other coworkers on your team. Now the deadline is looming and you are ready to scream. Totally understand. This is where boundaries comes in handy, and really is a way for you to draw a line in the sand, literally and figuratively, and truly give you permission to take on what you can handle and gracefully say no to everything else that's not serving you, and really take back charge of your time and your life. This is what it's all about. So this is a critical area that I think a lot of my clients have challenges with. And a couple of signals you would know if someone has crossed your boundaries, big one being resentment, frustration, or the feeling of dread, especially if it's you're noticing that bubble up when a certain person who you're having those boundary issues with, that you're going to interact with them, or maybe even just going to work in general. So why is it a challenge to set those boundaries? So I think this part is super important to understand, because I don't think any practical tactical tools will be even helpful if you don't dig into the reason and address that first. And so some of the common reasons a lot of people have issues with setting boundaries is, number one, they're afraid that they may hurt someone else's feelings. Number two, they're concerned that that person might be angry or upset with them. And with these two, it might even go a little deeper than that, meaning the reason behind the reason is that there's a fear that they're going to lose that person's love or affection or respect, or even be abandoned. And that's, not a fun thought. Number three, being viewed as selfish or unspiritual. Number four, the need for approval. Number five, over-identifying with the other person's problem and maybe only looking or kind of taking it on like it's your own, which empathy is a good thing, but not where it's taking over your entire life, so to speak. Another thing that came up was growing up, not generally fun thing to be told no, but if someone had something happen in their childhood where no was told at a critical emotional pivot point in that person's life. And for example, growing up, if you were told no by your mother when you were extremely vulnerable, needed her support after maybe having a fight with a friend, and came crying to her, and she kind of shut herself off from you emotionally and wasn't there for you, that could be a very painful experience, and one that if you internalize it, this is something that stays with you. So because you don't want anyone else to have to go through that kind of hurt, you've carried it with you, and now that's sort of the behind the scenes reasons why you don't set boundaries. Now, I'm not a therapist, but when it gets to deeper issues like this, or another example would be overdependence in a relationship, or even the inability to accept responsibility, those are issues where a therapist would be highly recommended. As I mentioned, I'm a life coach, so once the therapist can help you with dealing with those sort of past issues, any present day moving forward or shaping your future types of things where you need the strategy and the support and the accountability to help set those boundaries, practice that, that's where a coach can come in. And again, I'm a resource if you so choose to help with some of those types of things. So one signal to know it's time to actually set boundaries is actually the feeling of guilt. Because of the reasons I had stated earlier, there's this internal turmoil of wanting to help, but also wanting to take back charge of being able to say no and focus on what you need to focus on. And so when that happens, the feeling of guilt can occur, and that can actually be, like I said, a signal for you to draw the line. And again, not so easy to do. And I do want to highly recommend a book on the subject of boundaries. It's called Boundaries: When to Say Yes and How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life. And it's by Dr. Henry Cloud and John Townsend. In fact, I'm going to cite an example of one of the situations that they gave in just a bit. But I wanted to make sure that if you want to go deeper on the subject, this is a great resource. For those of you who are not that religious, I'll just give you a heads up that it has some religious undertones in it. But I think the value of everything they talk about around boundaries is still very, very valuable, even if you're not religious. So just wanted to give you that heads up. So the next part that's important is just to understand why considering boundaries is actually a good thing. First one is it allows you to reclaim your time, how you spend it, and really, like I said earlier, take back charge of your life. Number two, it commands respect, so you're not going to automatically be a doormat. Number three, it demonstrates that you care and truly love that person. And this is the example I wanted to share that was in the Boundaries book. So there was a set of parents that came to see the authors, and they had a son in his mid-20s who had a lot of issues. He was hanging out in the wrong crowd, doing drugs, not doing great in school, having trouble getting on any kind of career path. So definitely lots of issues. And they said that they tried everything with him. And once the authors asked them further questions, they came to the observation that this young man was being fully financially supported by his parents, and it wasn't necessarily a problem of the son, which was kind of eye-opening for the parents to hear, but they basically said, this is a boundaries problem that it sounds like you all have. And they were sort of shocked. And when he delved in further, they realized that this young man has a great place to live, lots of food, doesn't have to worry about a job, no reason to take any responsibility at all, and essentially had no rhyme or reason to suffer any of the consequences of his own actions, because his parents were constantly bailing him out financially and supporting him in that regard. And the bottom line, the author said, it's really more of a matter of tough love. So if they had set those boundaries early on and started to kind of wean him away from all the things they were providing, not bail him out and let him suffer the consequences of his own actions, he would probably learn a lot faster that this is not an ideal situation. So my point being that boundaries can actually be a true demonstration of that tough love. May not look that way, but it can be very, very healthy. Number 4, it's a foundation for healthy relationships. Number 5, filling your own cup first. And just like putting on your oxygen mask first, it's the same kind of concept. If your cup is filled, you're in a good place, you can then give freely to others. And it's not coming from resentment. It tends to happen when you have a very empty cup. So that's what I wanted to cover today. In our second part of our video on boundaries, we're going to be delving into how to effectively set boundaries, give you some actual tactical tools on things of that nature. And I hope this video was helpful. Please like and subscribe if it was, and I'll see you in the next video.